Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to our wonderful podcast where we are doing our second bonus episode because we have completed a second month of this podcast, which is a shock to all white men who have created podcasts and quit after a month. But I'm happy that
But
we
hey,
lasted
I
too
feel
long.
like that's a reference at me because I've done that.
Zach has a rock. How are you today, Zach?
Uh, I'm doing good. I think I've lost half of my body's water through my eyeball right now. So for those who watch it in video, you get 30 minutes of me rubbing my eye like a 7-year-old. For those in audio, I hope you get some great skin rubbing sounds through my speakers.
I don't think your speakers are good enough to pick up skin rubbing
Let me,
sounds.
let me put it really close to my eye.
All right, let's do our favorite opening segment, which is, of course, the last film you logged on Letterbox. Zach Ford. What
If
is the
that's our
last film you
favorite
logged in Letterbox?
segment, what's our least favorite opening segment? I need a top 10 opening segments. Go.
Please tweet at
My
us. Please tweet at us your favorite top 10 opening segments for our podcast.
um the last thing I watched was Across the Universe. I saw it, when I was in college, and I hated it, which is really in line with how I feel about all of my wife's favorite movies. Um, how do we end up together? Because taste is not everything. It's not about liking the same things, but we don't like any of the same things because she has shitty taste in movies. Um, so I
Wow.
rewatched it. Um, Cut it Sarah's choice, even though she decided that I forced her to watch it, so she gets another Sarah's choice next week. I feel like this was playing the system, um, but I don't hate it as much as I did back then. I think a big benefit it has now is that I'm watching it in a post yesterday world. And I can think about like, man, I would watch this every day if I don't ever have to watch yesterday ever again. Because Across the Universe isn't stupid. It's not a stupid movie. It's a pretty acid trippy movie. And I think my main thing is that my same problem I have with a lot of musicals, which like the story just doesn't matter. They don't care. They put the most, generic template of a story just as a something to keep the audiences engaged. Why it does what it really cares about, which is the song scenes, the set pieces, the visual, design of it, which I think all works well. But it's just distracting that you also want me to care about these characters, although they just are going through, a pretty basic Vietnam story and people trying to succeed as, musicians. I think redo the movie. You have the two scenes that they have with Bono and Joe Cocker, who like get to sing a song and they appear as a character. So having just characters kind of float through a world where they keep coming through different musicians like that, and you have real musicians singing different Beatles songs, and it's just like an elongated, compilation album of Beatles covers. And I'm all for that. Just don't have a story; it's not needed. So that's my thoughts across the universe. But I like it more than I did because they didn't act like semi decent singer changes the world because Beatles lyrics are the secret to discovering humanity and unity.
All right. I have not seen this film. I will talk about a movie that I just rewatched and is freaking amazing. And it's, sometimes you watch movies and they come out and you know the movie's really good, but you watch it, at an early part of the year. And so by the time at the end of the year, when you start looking at your best of the year lists and stuff, a movie kind of isn't remembered as well because it's been so long. And so I rewatched Get Out, 2017, Jordan Peele, brilliant horror movie. Please do not be one of those dumb dumbs who's walking around going, "It's not a horror movie." Go away. It's such a stupid take. It's clearly a horror movie. It's terrifying. It has several very convincing jump scares and a general sense of foreboding and anxiety that is fantastic. It is just got some wonderful performances. It is so good. And I knew it was good when I watched it the first time, and I gave it a really high rating and put it high in my rankings. But rewatching it, it was just a surreal experience where you're like, oh, wow, I can't believe it's taken me this long to rewatch this. I should be rewatching this all the time because that's how good it is.
Yeah. And Catherine Keener, who looks just like my mom, gives a great scary performance, just like my mom.
Although I'm going to say Allison Williams, one of the
Yeah,
scariest, most screwed up villains of recent
I
years.
saw this and I still prefer the Catherine Keener performance because the teacup scene just hurt. Like, if you sat in a room and Catherine Keener started spitting the spoon in a teacup, you would be freaked out because that performance sold that as an act of terrifying. menace.
Absolutely. But, the entire family, really good. Also, not to just talk about the white people, Daniel Kaluuya absolutely freaking kills it in that film and deserves all the awards he got and all the recognition because he rules.
Yeah, his eyes are Hollywood's greatest asset that we have today.
It's kind of true. But with that, let's move on to our. I guess it's the feature film, even though it's not necessarily a film or feature.
They have feature films. It's a special. It's a holiday special.
No. I know, but in the context of our show, it is the featured film, even though it is 25 minutes long and technically a TV special, and that is, of course, it's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, Zack Ford. We all know what we want. We want the Zack Ford plot summary. Give it to us.
We all want the Great Pumpkin. So there's these guys. They're called the Peanuts Gang. Yeah, Charlie Brown. Okay, everybody loves him. He has a shitty life, and he's real sad about it. And somehow we just want to root for him, and we feel bad. We got Lucy. She's a dick. We got Linus. He might be a conspiracy theorist. We'll get into that. We got Sally. She's way too horny for a young age. We got Snoopy. He's the guy. Woodstock didn't even make an appearance, which now makes me think that this was a 5-star show. But once I realized Woodstock's not in it, it goes down to 1 star. Bullshit. Bring Woodstock in. The best buddy team we got, Woodstock and Snoopy. So, anyways, it's Halloween. We got these guys. Linus, he believes there's this great pumpkin. What is the great pumpkin? They don't really talk about it. It doesn't matter. He comes around to the most sincere pumpkin patch, which is my favorite line. It's just he keeps saying, "This pumpkin patch is real sincere. This is the sincerest pumpkin patch." He is going to come. If anyone knows anything about the show, is that I love the word sincere and have said it approximately 75 times on this podcast. So Linus is my buddy, although he's a flat earther, and. So he's waiting for the great pumpkin. Sally wants some of that, so she tries to be, faithful to her dear crush and stay by him and the pumpkin patch overnight. While all the other ones are trick or treating, getting some rocks, getting some candy. They're all dressed like ghosts except for Lucy because no one had more creativity to come up with a better costume. Even the witch of Lucy is still a ghost underneath her witch mask. And Charlie Brown just has like a whole shitty ass time. Just a lot of bad things happen to him. And at the end, him and Linus get to have a little chat about their night. Charlie Brown's like, you know what? I had a horrible night, but you also raided a pumpkin patch all night for something that doesn't exist. You must feel horrible. And Linus is like, I don't feel horrible. Fuck you. Pumpkin exists. We're gonna keep it going next year, baby. And that's how the show ends.
All right. Let's start this discussion focusing on the main creative entity, which is, of course, Peanuts. You cannot talk about this individual special without talking about the Peanuts at large. Zach, I feel like you're going to have a more interesting answer on this than I will. What is your connection to the Peanuts and comics, specials, and the work of Charles Schulz?
I feel like it was pretty evident in the way I delivered that plot. That is like, even though I'm making a lot of jokes, I'm a real fan. That's where the jokes come from. I have lots of material on Peanuts Gang. As like many burgeoning readers when you're a kid, don't give me no book. Give me those funnies. Once I discovered that there's a library in Columbus that had like every Garfield book, and I thought there was no greater building that has ever existed than this library. But that's how I felt about Charlie Brown too. Like I was an avid Charlie Brown reader. I still have lots of collections. They're all over my classroom. I feel like this is like that in Winnie the Pooh or the child's introduction to philosophy in a way to get you to think about, life in a deeper way. It deals with childhood in a deeper way that you don't deal with much. Charles Schulz is a true smart philosopher of childhood. And connect that to the specials. Like my family watch the Christmas episode, the Easter episode, every week. The only joke my stepmom ever cared about is the Charlie Brown Easter episode where she continues to cook the eggs the wrong way, and nothing is ever funnier to her. So it grew up with this kind of as a family tradition. My dad said every line to Charlie Brown Christmas, and I just wanted to watch the damn show. As someone who can't remember any words. But I do have a great connection to these characters. I think it is like up the perfect Zach alley of being a fun kids thing, having a lot of great dry humor, but also just deeper if you dig into it. And has a lot of great things to say about childhood. I don't know. It's a perfect material. I would say Charlie Brown Christmas specifically is like a top five cultural material to me. It's one of my favorite things like to exist. It's a very important thing to me. And Great Pumpkin, I do feel strongly about Nat Ashlaw, but I still, love the special.
Absolutely. So I would like to start by saying that, like Zach, this podcast, I think, and Zach will agree on this, is very pro library. We are a pro library podcast. Yes,
Please donate to your local libraries. They're at a time of struggle.
And they're wonderful places. Lots of them are doing curbside pickup. Please reach out and see what they can do.
Mine is doing CSAs. I just want to say this is weird. I haven't tried it out, but you just like fill out a quick survey. You say like things you like, and they like create your own package for you. They just recommend books and movies and throw in a big bag, and you get to go.
That sounds awesome.
It sounds like the librarians are real bored.
Yeah, ours are doing curbside pickup. So basically, you can do the typical interlibrary loan orders, and then they will check them out and give them to you, like leave them outside so you can pick them up. But yes, so I started reading comics too in the library. I didn't read Charlie Brown. I read Charlie Brown some, and I did definitely watch some of the specials, but I don't think he has as big an impact on my life as yours. I was more of a Garfield, but also Calvin and Hobbes guy, which kind of makes sense.
Me too.
Calvin Hobbes. Thank God that Bill Watterson never let that get turned into a movie, because that is brilliant as is and never needs to be adapted. But back to Charlie Brown. Yes, the Peanuts are just wonderful. They have a deeper meaning and they have a philosophy to them. It's kind of like Calvin and Hobbes in that respect, where you can read into the deeper stuff if you want to as you get older, but also as just a kid, they're fun. And the stuff they do is fun because, Snoopy dressing up as a pilot and tripping people over footballs is just kind of funny. Yeah, and this is just such a unique style. I love the fact in this that the animation style is just the comics. I love that they kind of do that.
That's great.
I think it's great. Like, you could have tried something more complicated, but there's something kind of wonderful about it. It really just feels like you took a page of a Peanuts comic and then made it come to life. And that's the Charlie Brown you see in the newspaper or in the book, just walking around in this special.
I do feel like there's some more artistry in the backgrounds than this in the comics. There's a very like impressionistic aspect to how they, paint the sky or the pumpkin patch. It all kind of blurs in together. Like, you can still tell what it is, but there's this blurry impressionistic feel I find really stunning, with the simplistic characters, placed upon top. I just love when they get creative with the backgrounds, just so even if the characters are not quite intricately designed, there's always something, pretty stunning that you can just look at and take in for a second.
Absolutely. It's just it's a wonderful style, and I think that sticking with it was probably the smartest move that any of these specials did. Like, let's not change anything, let's just kind of keep with it. There's some
and really the rhythm. The rhythm of it is the same as like reading a cartoon. Like, it's just very paced out, and there's a lot of reliance on the visuals, which the comics did as well. They would have whole ones of just watching Charlie Brown like wind up to kick the ball, a lot of visual humor, and they just really save that punchline for the end. And that's like the show starts off with like 3 minutes of silence. Of them trying to get a pumpkin, and all the gags is done visually, and it just ends with like Linus or Lucy letting loose, and so they save the dialogue and the punchlines for the best moment. They don't overuse it. Every word written has a purpose, and that's like the magic of Charles Schultz.
Well, the music is also a really big part of that. Is that the music is really it has like a momentum to it. So when you're watching it, the music is happening, and even if they're not saying dialogue, you stick with it because the music, and just the images on screen really tells you that this is going somewhere, and that there's no reason to turn it off.
Yeah. I would also say like the segmentary aspect of it. I think I made up a word, segmentary, putting into segments.
Yeah, it is broken up.
Okay. Yeah, the way it's broken up is like it's a combination of comic strips. Like if you took all the Halloween themed strips that they released the past 2 weeks and put it into a cartoon, that's what it is. You get the football gag, you get the picking a pumpkin gag, you get the trick or treating gag, the Red Baron thing. So it's really just a bunch of strips that they would illustrate and put together into one kind of coherent piece. And I think that is the magic. I think just how true they stay to what Peanuts is all about is was the smartest thing they could have done. And that's the magic of why these shows are timeless, 50 years later, 60 years later almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. There's some like really good gags in this. You're talking about the visual gag. I think one of the best gags in this is the trick or treating bit where they go to different houses, they go up the door.
I want to tie this into the idea that Charlie Brown's having a shitty
No.
day.
This is I think this is the funniest gag in it, but it really ties into that. Is yes, they go up to the different houses. Every kid is getting trick or treats, and they get back and they're comparing, and the kids are going, "Oh, I got candy, I got cookies, I got something else." At every single place, Charlie Brown, without fail, gets a rock because Charlie Brown's life in this thing sucks. No one likes him, and they're so rude to him that they go out of their way to point out how that nobody likes him. Like he gets invited to a party and is really happy about it, and the character next to him has to go, "Yeah, but like that was probably an accident because everyone hates you."
Yeah, these kind of the bullying prod. Even though he's good old Charlie Brown, they still like him for just staying like humble and keep going. But I feel like especially in this one, he goes through it. Like he has a real hard time. Like nothing works out. This is the saddest version of the Charlie Brown
and
any other
special.
special.
Do a ghost costume correctly. He cuts too many holes in his ghost costume.
Yeah, and he gets the rocks. And he doesn't get invited to the party.
Like
where these rocks even come from? Who are these shitty ass people? They should be arrested. They're just like handing rocks to one kid. They're encouraging the bullying of this poor kid.
You do have to wonder the question if that the famous wives' tale of people getting candy with like needles or razor blades in it came from people like just going off their rocker watching this and being like, well, if somebody gave someone a rock, why wouldn't they give themselves a weapon?
I do think that this should just be like routine. Like you should always put 6 rocks in your thing of candy, just like to make it more of a game. That's gamesmanship. Halloween. It's a roulette. You get lucky. Do you get a Reese's cup or do you get a rock? And of course, Charlie Brown would pull rock every time in that wheel. It's just the way his day goes.
Basically, what you want to do is go to a gaming table with Charlie Brown and just bet the opposite of whatever he does. Guaranteed.
You win. Also, how does it make you feel that I think Charlie Brown is one of the top 5 characters that I relate to the most? Do really worry about my mental health? Yeah.
You really do?
I think as a kid, everyone thought I was Linus, but that's just because I carried like a pillow with me, like he carries a blankie.
The important question is Sarah Lucy or is Sarah another character? And has Sarah ever tripped you while holding a football?
No, but vice versa. Sarah is my little redhead girl, the one person that Charlie Brown was meant to be with.
The one nice person to Charlie Brown that very quickly and swiftly disappeared and left him back with the people who are mean to him.
He's basically, I'm pretty sure she's a figment of his imagination. She's just the girlfriend in Canada.
Basically,
in the Charlie Brown world.
It is pretty hilarious though that like everybody calls him good old Charlie Brown, but he's basically just the punching bag for everyone. He's good old punching bag that they can always make fun of or take a shot at.
Yeah, he's my good old Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
I had something to say that I completely forgot.
No, the Great Pumpkin, right? So the Great Pumpkin, of course, is kind of a Santa Claus analogy, right? That's kind of the basic idea of it.
Yes. What is the Great Pumpkin, though? We don't know.
Well, I think the important thing to talk about is that Linus is an idiot.
Is it a large ass pumpkin? This is Kane and me. Is it literally?
I have no idea.
Linus
is it like a pumpkin man? I don't know.
He made this up, right?
Oh yeah, this thing is not real. This is not a thing.
Like he's just like fucking with people. He's just a troll.
I don't think he's because here's the difference. I don't think he's fucking with people. I think he is so stupid that he genuinely believes his own crap.
Stupid. It's delusional. There's a difference. But then this is why he's a conspiracy theorist. He's grabbing onto some weird idea and he stays so stubborn about it, and no one will prove him otherwise. He's anti-science. The fact that this pumpkin has never showed up is not going to tell him he is wrong. No woman is going to tell Linus that there's no great pumpkin.
It is really kind of conspiracy theory in that he believes this is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and then he makes up a reason to justify the thing that he said was going to happen, and then continues to believe the exact same thing
and
he's always
shout
believed.
at the non-believers, like they're the dumb ones and he's the smart one.
I mean, I don't know, Linus. You're the one who almost froze to death sitting in a pumpkin patch. So I think we know who won the movie here. Um,
That
I
is
think
the
also we need
sweetest part of the show, though. When like Lucy was like such a fucking dick. She like comes out and like pulls him from the pumpkin patch and like has him wrapped in the blanket. It's real sweet. It's just something
it
like
is
great
very
brother
sweet.
sister moment.
Yeah, she's the big sister. She's like, you're an idiot, but you're my
I gotta
brother,
take
so I have
care
to
of
take you.
you. Make sure you
Let's
don't
talk.
freeze to death
Let's
overnight.
talk about it. Let's talk about another character, which
You
of
know who
course is
didn't care? The parents. They're just like that kid didn't sleep with the
this
pumpkin
is
patch.
another weird thing is that in all Peanuts there are no parents, and for some weird reason,
There is parents. They go wah wah wah, and the teachers. That's all you
oh,
get.
that's true. Yeah, but you don't have like a parent wondering why Charlie Brown's
They,
getting the crap
there's
kicked out of
no
him
adult in
after.
this.
Yeah. Poor Sally. I think I wrote in our outline, love sucks because poor Sally is
Yeah. So devoted.
for no reason in particular completely infatuated with this weirdo who's sitting out in a pumpkin patch.
It's because it's her
Uh,
brother's friends. Classic kid thing to do.
yeah, okay, but then poor kid, because she's just like, I'm gonna sit here and believe in this guy, and I feel like this is just the beginning of men failing women for the rest of time.
Yeah, she definitely has picked a lot of bad choices and
She's
stayed a
like,
little too long.
I am going to believe in this guy and sit out in the pumpkin patch with him like a weirdo. And then he, of course, being a guy, fails her miserably, and she doesn't get any candy. So I would like to apologize on behalf of men worldwide for making women,
Yeah.
for letting women believe in us
Oh,
and sit on pumpkin patches.
all you Sallys out there. I'm sorry I made you stay out on the dock looking for the Loch Ness monster when we were just in Lake Erie. I'm sorry, Sally.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk about the character, the one character in this movie who rules at all times, and that is, of course, Snoopy.
Snoopy,
Snoopy,
my buddy.
Snoopy is so much better than every one of these characters. He has his life together. He's got stuff going on. The rest of these people are sitting out in pumpkin patches. He is a pilot. He's a war hero. Um, he later acquires a fun friend who is. I don't know why he's not in this movie. I'm not enough of a that's expert to
Just they
understand why.
didn't have a place for him. I don't
Oh, yeah, great sequence. Great sequence where he's next to the piano and Snoopy either begins to dance or cry, depending on the tune that is played. Great visual gag there, because Snoopy, of course, rules.
I really love the visual gag that they give him this like pretty intense war sequence, which I actually my favorite animation through it is when he's flying on his doghouse. So it has this like artificiality, like he's playing, he's on the doghouse, but behind him as the like clouds turn colors and his bullets flying, and the motion of him moving through it is I think so amusing, but also like pretty intense, war scene that's happening in his head. But the way it's animated keeps the disconnect between the reality and the imagination. And I think it's important for the show. Then they have him like crash in like war torn France or something as
Yeah,
he's like walking through these turned down towers, which is all very intense. That is capped off by him just like climbing down the curtains inside of Charlie Brown's house, which is like such a bit. I just love the divide between what's happening in his head to what's happening in real life. That they just break that kind of that sequence by bringing us back to the earth and how the other like people are watching him just climb randomly down the house, and it's so funny. And then he goes to the piano.
it's the greatness of cartoons, though, because like
Mhm.
Peanuts does this where they play everything about Snoopy being a flying ace in World War II, in World War One, so seriously, and like it's so believable in the same way. And I'm going to compare back to something we talked about, Calvin and Hobbes, where they play Calvin and Hobbes being an alive tiger and their adventures together as so real, even though no one around them can see them. And this is kind of the joy and wonder of like cartoons that you can do that where you can play something as serious while having the other characters like not realize it's even happening.
Yeah, and usually it's done through the kids' characters, but the act of doing it through the dog character kind of makes it so much more
Oh, it's
amusing.
wonderful.
Like he's the most like child of all the children. The other ones are having like deep emotional feelings and like going through some shit. And Snoopy's just like having his day, just like playing around, exploring his own imagination. He lives his best life, and it inspires me to live my best life.
Zach, any
What do
final
you
thoughts?
think?
Go
What do
ahead.
you think started Snoopy's interest in World War II and the Red Baron? Do you think he's like reading these World War II biographies and gets all on it?
It's World War One.
Oh,
I was
sorry.
using the old. No, I'm just pointing it out for the audience. I don't want to get the Michael Campbell email telling us that we mentioned the wrong war. I don't know. I think it's just a cool quirk. I think it's like a cool quirk of the time, and he just got interested in this. And I think that in some ways, the fact that it's not explainable and doesn't have a clear through line is what makes it the coolest. It's just Snoopy one day just got up and decided he was going to put on, flying suit and go take a flight on his doghouse.
Yeah, but I do always love that that's like always the B plot. Like his story exists outside of the realm of everything happening between the other Peanuts gangs, and so just like it's almost like comic relief in the middle. You know, the whole thing's a comic, but it's just like comic relief in the middle of the main story, and it works every time.
Absolutely. Zach, any final thoughts on the
I
Charlie
don't have
Brown?
final thoughts on that, but I do feel a need to share just how much of a weirdo I am and how
Go ahead.
important like Charlie Brown comics slash every comics were to me. There's a point when I was like, I don't think I might have been like 14, like too old to be doing some bullshit like this, that I would read every newspaper funny in the Sunday comics and throughout the week. I would like one day sit and I would read every one. I would cut out my top 5 comics from the week, and I was creating. I found this like a year ago. I probably threw it away. I created my own little like scrapbook of my favorite comics, and I would like also write notes on like my favorite line was the best joke. So I had great detailed account. I was gonna create a historical record of the Sunday funnies in the mid 2000s.
Zach Ford, Peanut super fan. Yeah, I think this is just a really fun, enjoyable Halloween special that everyone should, and I think like all the Charlie Brown specials, are just like really wonderful, fun things to sit down with your family and watch because one, it's always wonderful to have a 30-minute or less special. Always makes it fun because it's easy for everyone to find time for that. And they're just enjoyable, wonderful things that, bring you back to childhood and like allow you to cherish the small stuff like being excited about trick or treating or picking a costume or waiting for a giant pumpkin that doesn't exist.
And they're timeless. Other than it being like slightly slow, maybe for some kids it's important to train their brains to be able to work in this pace level. And after that, I feel like the stories they tell, the jokes they tell are timeless.
Absolutely. I actually don't think it's that slow. I think that if your kid says it's slow,
Yeah.
uh, just convince them to keep going with it because I think at the end of the
Take
day,
away the Nintendo Switch from them for one day.
Zach is all right. I'm not going to advise people to take toys away from children, but
I'm a
this
great
has
parent. Please follow all the rules I give. What I say is the best way to raise your child. No
Zach
video
Ford,
games and only broccoli.
Zach Ford parenting classes. But I want to thank everyone for joining us for this episode on the wonderful holiday short. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, in which we learned that a character may be a flat earther slash conspiracy theorist. Um, Next episode, we start month 3 of our podcast. We have a new topic. The topic is, of course, Alfred Hitchcock, the wonderful director. We will be going back to the same format for a month as we did with Tom Hanks. We're going to touch on the decades of Mr. Hitchcock's career. Of course, we're going to start in the 30s because it's really hard to find or get a hold of any of his early British work. But yes, we're going to do an episode on the 30s, episode on the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. We have some wonderful guests. The first episode, which we will see next week, is starting with the 39 Steps from the 1930s. And we are so excited to talk about Alfred Hitchcock. He's one of my favorite directors. I believe Zach likes a lot of his movies as well. I don't know if he's as big of a fan as I am.
I like them, but this was a Zach month. Now we're gonna move on to a Lucas month.
A little bit of a Lucas month, but we hope you join us for that. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. We are so happy that we've had an audience for 2 months. That's crazy, and we're just so thankful to everyone who has sat down and taken out of their time to listen to us because that's awesome. And Zach is playing with bubbles, so I think it's time to end. Thank you for listening, everyone. We will see you next week when we start Alfred Hitchcock.